everybody. As you all know, in last class we discussed about the different characteristic features what happens in different types of reflexes like monosynaptic, bisynaptic, and polysynaptic. For all these reflexes to happen, there has to be some features or characteristic features of reflexes, which is called as the properties of reflexes. For any reflex, there has to be an adequate stimulus. The alpha motor neuron is the final common pathway. There has to be a one-way conduction, or there has to be a synaptic delay or a central delay. And if there are two neurons which are stimulated together, what will be the response? Or if there is overlapping of neurons, which can result in occlusion. So there can be fractionation when a muscle is stimulated directly. What happens when a sensory nerve, a motor nerve is stimulated, or a sensory nerve, or when more and more neurons are involved, more and more neurons, motor units are included. So this is recruitment, or in irradiation after discharge we see in polysynaptic. And you can see what is the features in central excitatory and inhibitory states. And if there is continuous stimulation, what is habituation and sensitization. Finally, we'll know what is rebound phenomena. So we shall see the first property, what is called as adequate stimulus. The reflex activity, as you all know, is stereotyped. That is, it is fixed and is specific in terms of both the stimulus and the response. Therefore, a particular stimulus produces a particular response. As the receptors respond maximally only when an appropriate specific stimulus is applied. Likewise, the stimulus that produces a reflex is very precise and is called adequate stimulus for the particular reflex. So what is the next property? So it has to be precise for an adequate stimulus. So for the response, it has to be very precise. So the next property is final common pathway. So you can see in this figure how the alpha motor neuron that supply the extrafusal fibers in the skeletal muscle are the final common pathway over which their neural control coordinates the activity of skeletal muscle. I mean to say, it can be both. When I say the influences, it is both excitatory and inhibitory, affecting muscle contraction. That means the alpha motor neuron is the one which all these influences are funneling through them to the muscles. So if an alpha motor neuron is stimulated, the skeletal muscle fibers contract. If the alpha motor neuron is not stimulated, the skeletal muscle fibers will relax. Therefore, the alpha motor neuron is the final common pathway, serving both as the integrating center and efferent pathway. So there is always a one-way conduction. So what is synaptic delay or central delay? The time taken by the impulse to traverse the spinal cord is called central delay. It includes synaptic delay. For a knee jerk to be elicited, it is around 0.6 to 0.9 milliseconds. So this is synaptic delay. So what about the other properties like summation and occlusion? So if a stimulus is subminimal and applied to an afferent nerve, sensory nerve, there will be liberation of chemical transmitter which will cause excitatory postsynaptic potential. But this EPSP will not be sufficient to produce a discharge of impulse from the motor neurons. So a number of subminimal stimuli is applied, their effects will be summated together and the EPSP will be sufficient to induce the motor neurons to discharge impulse and produce reflex. This is called a summation. We can see in this figure, if two neurons are stimulated, A and B, then you can see that stimulation of A stimulates 3 neurons and stimulation of B stimulates 3. Whereas if you simultaneously stimulate A and B together, it stimulates 12 neurons instead of 6. Here, when the two afferent nerves are simultaneously stimulated, the response obtained is greater than the sum of the response obtained when the nerves are stimulated separately. That means it is summated. When one afferent alone is stimulated, 3 neurons reach the discharge zone and produce stimulus response. But when 6 neurons are in the, so when I say both the neurons, they summate, and when I say summation of subliminal fringe, subluminance means below threshold and fringe is the border. So you can see that the excitability is increased in this, but has not reached the threshold. So simultaneous stimulation of A and B together cause summation of subliminal fringe and all 12 neurons start discharging. So summation and subliminal fringe are acting together. The opposite of summation is occlusion. So what is occlusion? So all these properties come under fractionation. So when a muscle is stimulated directly or through a motor nerve, the magnitude of contraction is greater than when it is stimulated the sensory nerve to the muscle. So I mean, when it is stimulated, when the motor nerve is stimulated, the magnitude of contraction is greater compared to the sensory nerve. But when the sensory nerve is stimulated, only a fraction or portion of motor units is activated, hence contraction will be less. This is called occlusion. So what do you mean by occlusion? You can see in this example, when a nerve A is stimulated, there are 9 neurons activated. Stimulation of B stimulates 9 neurons, whereas stimulation of A and B together causes stimulation of only 12 neurons. If two afferent nerves are stimulated simultaneously, the response obtained is smaller than the sum of maximum response expected from summation of these two nerves separately. This is due to central overlapping of afferent nerves. So different afferent nerves share the same motor neuron. This property is called as occlusion. So in summation, when they added, because of the subluminal effect, they have a greater response. But in occlusion, because of the overlapping of neurons, there is decreased response. So final common pathway. So we came to know what is adequate stimulus. It has to be precise, alpha motor neuron, and there can be a delay in the traversing of the spinal cord by the impulse. And what is summation? When two neurons are stimulated together, there is a greater response. But in occlusion, due to the overlapping or central sharing, there is decreased response. And fractionation is when a muscle is stimulated, same as. So what about recruitment? This recruitment and after discharge happens in polysynaptic reflex or withdrawal reflex. A weak stimulus produces only one quick flexor response. With the stronger stimulus, there is crossed extensor is also produced. That means in the same hand there is flexor when you touch a hot object, but on the opposite side there is extension of the opposite leg. This prolonged response is due to prolonged repeated firing of motor neurons. This repeated firing even after the sensory nerve is stopped firing is called as after discharge and is due to continued bombardment of motor neurons by reverberating circuits. So recruitment, what does the Importance of recruitment. Recruitment gives inertia, that is sluggishness, and after discharge provides momentum, that is driving force, to reflex movements. So, making these movements smoother in onset and termination. So, this is about recruitment. And what is irradiation? If a sensory stimulus is be too strong, the impulse would spread onto many neighboring neurons in the center and produce wider response. This is irradiation. For instance, a weak pin prick on the finger will produce a reflex movement of that finger only. But if the prick is too hard, the whole hand will jerk up. If this process continues, there will be recruitment of more and more motor units. Irradiation is due to transmission of the afferent fibers and interneuron. A stronger stimulus will cause reflex contraction of extensor muscles of opposite limb. So, what is central excitatory and inhibitory state? As you all know, the spinal cord shows prolonged changes in excitability because of the activity of reverberating circuits or prolonged effects of synaptic mediators. The prolonged state in which excitatory influences exceed the inhibitory influence is called central excitatory state. Conversely, if the inhibitory state dominates, it is called, so when excitatory state is dominating, it is overrides the inhibitory, it is excitatory state. Whereas if the inhibitory overrides the excitatory, it is, for example, when do you come across this? When you completely transect the spinal cord, after complete transection of the spinal cord, when the reflex movements return, a mild noxious stimuli on the lower limbs may cause withdrawal reflex and autonomic changes like urination, defecation, sweating, and fluctuation in BP. This is referred to as mass reflex. It occurs when the central excitatory state is marked. So, what is habituation and sensitization? Though the reflex responses are stereotyped, they can be modified by experience. If the stimulus is benign and repeated at frequent intervals, the response declines and disappears. This phenomenon is called as habituation. Whereas the opposite response is prolonged facilitation of synaptic conduction in a reflex can be produced by noxious stimuli. This is called as sensitization, which can last for hours to days. As you all know, this habituation and sensitization we discussed even in synapse, where the presynaptic terminals are stimulated. It results in there is continuous exertion. If you continuously stimulate, repeated stimulation of presynaptic neuron leads to gradual decrease and finally disappearance of postsynaptic response. This was called as habituation. This is due to exhaustion of chemical transmitter, as its synthesis is not as rapid as the release. So we need to understand that it is due to the decreased release in neurotransmitter and the chemicals. So what about the rebound phenomenon? Just as a muscle can be reflexly excited, so also it can be reflexly inhibited. That is, the tone is reduced and the muscle elongated due to relaxation. This is called reflex inhibition. After such reflex inhibition, when a tetanizing current with high frequency is applied, if the stimuli be stopped, the muscle, instead of going back to its former length, becomes shorter. In other words, the muscle tone increases above the normal resting state. This is called as rebound phenomena. So we have come across all the properties where this has taken place in the this has taken place in your all the reflexes, whether it is stretch reflex, whether it is reciprocal innervation, where the agonist and antagonist are opposite to each other. That means when you flex, the biceps contract and there is antagonist relaxing. This is reciprocal innervation. So all the result after discharge, the irradiation, all the reverberating circuits happening in polysynaptic reflex. So when we summarize this reflexes, we need to understand that when we elicit reflexes in upper motor neuron reflex, due to the gamma efferent activity or the sensitivity is increased, there is deep tendon reflexes are exaggerated, whereas the superficial reflexes are lost. Whereas if you take a cerebellar disease, the knee jerk is pendular, or if you take in hypothyroidism, the knee jerk, ankle jerk is delayed. So all this clinical relevance is important to us. To when we summarize the difference between monosynaptic and polysynaptic, as you all know, monosynaptic has one synapse, whereas the polysynaptic has many synapses between the afferent and efferent neurons. Examples for monosynaptic was stretch reflex like knee jerk and bicep jerk. The polysynaptic, the examples were withdrawal reflex and superficial reflexes like cremasteric and abdominal. The more important feature is in monosynaptic reflex there is no after discharge because of the monosynaptic pathway, whereas in polysynaptic after discharge and irradiation of impulses take place. If you take the latency of the response, it is shorter because of rapidly conducting afferent fibers, whereas the latency is longer due to slowly conducting fibers in polysynaptic pathway. Both the reflexes are basically protective reflexes. They are characterized by reciprocal innervation. Both show integration at the alpha motor neuron, which serves as the final common pathway. So we need to understand that this properties helps us to understand the concepts of monosynaptic reflex. For example, in stretch reflex, you know the muscle spindle has both dynamic and static, and this stretch reflex helps us to for posture and maintains the tone. So where there is asynchronous discharge of impulses. So the clinical relevance is we should know what are the types of reflexes, whether it is superficial reflex, whether it is deep reflexes. So as you all know, what is the meaning of superficial? It is elicited from skin and mucous membrane like corneal reflex or plantar reflex. If it is elicited by stroking the tendons, it is deep tendon reflexes. Or if it is clinically elicited by what is called as visceral reflexes, it can be deglutition, defecation, or a pathological reflex, where there is, when you stroke the plantar aspect, you will have what is called as, normally it is flexor response, there can be an extensor response called as Babinski sign. So clinically we should know what are the types of superficial and deep reflexes. So all these properties enhance us to learn the concepts of these reflexes in detail. Thank you.